In a poor village, surrounded by dusty roads and endless fields, there lived a young boy named Samuel. Samuel was not like the other children. He had a dream far bigger than the place he came from. While most of his friends played in the streets, Samuel would sit by an old cracked television in a neighbor's shop, watching athletes race across the screen with lightning speed. One evening, after watching a famous runner win a gold medal, Samuel turned to his mother and said with shining eyes, "Mama, one day I'll run on those tracks too. I'll make you proud." His mother smiled faintly. She loved his spirit, but she also knew reality. Samuel had no proper training, no facilities, and worst of all, no proper shoes. The only pair he owned were torn, with holes so wide his toes almost touched the ground. At school, the other children teased him. "You can't be an athlete with those shoes. You'll trip before you even start." Their laughter echoed, but Samuel refused to let it pierce his dream. Every morning, while the village was still asleep, he would rise before the sun, tie the old laces tightly around his feet, and run barefoot across the dirt roads, using the broken shoes only when absolutely necessary. He trained under the scorching sun, through heavy rains, and sometimes with an empty stomach. And each night, his mother would sit outside, sewing the same pair of shoes again and again, knowing they would soon fall apart, but unwilling to let her son give up. "Samuel," she would whisper, "promise me one thing. Don't let what you don't have stop you from chasing what you want." Months passed, and finally, the village announced a local race. It was a small event, but to Samuel, it was everything. This was his chance to prove, not only to others, but to himself, that he was born to run. On the morning of the race, Samuel slipped into those same battered shoes. At the starting line, some of the other boys whispered and laughed. "Look, it's Samuel with his broken shoes. He won't even last halfway." But Samuel didn't hear them. His eyes were fixed on the finish line. The whistle blew. The runners exploded forward, dust rising into the air. Samuel's shoes tore further with every step, but his determination grew stronger. He pushed his legs harder, his breath sharper, his heart louder. He wasn't running with his shoes. He was running with his dream. The crowd gasped as Samuel moved ahead, his strides longer and faster than anyone else's. And with one final push, he crossed the finish line. First, for a moment, silence filled the air. Then, cheers erupted. Samuel stood there, exhausted, his shoes nearly falling apart, but his face lit up with victory. For the first time, the same children who had mocked him now clapped for him. His mother ran to him with tears streaming down her face. From that day, Samuel was no longer just the boy with broken shoes. A local coach, impressed by his determination, approached him after the race. "Son," he said, "you may not have the best shoes, but you have the strongest spirit I've ever seen. Let me train you." And so, Samuel's journey began. Years later, he stood not on a dusty dirt road, but on a professional track. This time, he wore brand new shoes. And he wasn't just running, he was winning medals for his country. When reporters asked him about his journey, Samuel lifted those same old torn shoes he'd kept as a reminder and said, "It was never about what I didn't have. It was about what I refused to give up." And that is what Samuel's story teaches us. It is not the lack of resources that stops us, but the excuses we choose to make. Even with broken shoes, we can still run toward our dreams. This story reminds us that greatness doesn't come from what we have, but from the determination to keep moving forward, no matter the obstacles. If this story motivates you, don't forget to subscribe and join us for more motivational stories that will keep your spirit running strong.